Good afternoon. My name is Alastair. This is Jare to Jared. On this week's episode, the Jareds discuss the movie Borat, 90s comedy tropes, Dion Baron Cohen, Satire, Circumcision, and much, much more. Gentlemen, the time is now.
What does Ashley say about the pod?
Oh, she's funny. She's like, she's listening to the most recent one, and she was like, man, you guys could like just keep going, huh? And I was like, yeah.
Just like, actually, we did. Jared edited out like 30 minutes.
I was like, yeah, this is literally just like portions of an ongoing conversation since 2016, like.
Right.
She was like, yeah, you guys really like don't run out of shit to say. And I was like, yeah, I don't know.
That's what I was saying. Like a lot of podcasts stop because I don't have shit to say. Me and you. This is conversation one still. We haven't started
seriously.
Our second conversation yet.
Seriously. Or like even because I watched Borat with her and she was hanging out watching some of it. And I was like sharing some ideas with it. And she's like, you guys are literally able to fucking like philosophize about Borat. Like, what the fuck? Like, she's laughing,
Oh, that's hilarious. I'm just like, how could you not?
Yeah, because I was like, look, man, Borat, there's so many ways you could cut that movie, And she's just like, there are? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? All right, man. So what's today's topic? Borat, Arthurian legends? Both. Maybe Borat is an Arthurian legend.
Borat as an Arthurian legend.
Yeah. Nah, probably not.
I mean, if you think of it in like Mark Twain, the fucking King Arthur's court, a Yankee, a Kazakhstanian Yankee, and
Right.
That's kind of what it is, though. I don't know. There's an argument there.
There's something there. Yeah, there's something there for sure.
So, thoughts on Borat as a sci-fi? Is it true?
Borat as a sci-fi? No.
No, just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Borat's actually an alien.
Borat's actually, or we're actually, yeah. Borat's a illegal alien.
It's a sci-fi.
But in all seriousness, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's so many. There's so many ways to like cut that movie because it really is like a cross section of American culture in the early 2000s or 2006.
Right.
So. Okay, one thing now it's like obvious that really stands out is race, right? I mean, like so much of that movie and the humor in that movie is kind of race based and this sort of like transgression of lines and things like that.
Right.
And I mean, there's appalling shit. I mean, I think the most appalling scene in that movie is when he's hitchhiking and he gets picked up by the frat boys.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're all like wasted in the van.
Right.
And then Borat's just like, he's like Sacha Baron Cohen. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
he's just like trying to pull like horrible shit from these people.
You're right.
So Borat's like, oh yeah, we have slaves in my country, And then and all the frat boys are just like, dude, that's so cool. Like I would love to have a slave, It's like the most
it's amazing, yeah.
But then that made me think it's kind of similar to the like Trump hanging out in the van, not realizing he's being recorded, saying the whole like grab her by the pussy line, where it's just like all of the sort of like disgusting things that are said in privacy. That like that I think no one was totally sure that those were the perspectives held, or everyone knew, but not publicly so. And then Borat just kind of went into the private space and just sort of like dragged some of that into the public space. And I think that's what was so like shocking about that movie.
Right. I mean, the most shocking part of it is that it's like, you've been punked. It's a reality, like reality prank, essentially. It's actually happening in real time.
Yeah.
And crazy too. Like I was telling you, all the death threats and shit that he gets from that. He almost died multiple times. Him and his directors doing that film with like, after the rodeo, there's a bunch of cowboys waiting for them outside at their van and shit. They had to run.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like, did you see the second one? Is there two Borats?
There is, yeah, which
Yeah,
I didn't know that. So a Borat came out in 2020.
So the second one's wild, man.
Is
And
it? You
the
saw it?
second one is the one where, dude, he gets Rudy Giuliani.
Wait, really?
Dude, oh my God, you have no idea. So there's this young girl from Kazakhstan he brings with him. Lisa's Mondage. She is the most beautiful world, #1 prostitute, all of Kazakhstan. And freaking, she's like, it's the most hilarious, like ridiculous. She's so wild and just like ugly and disgusting, crazy, and fake teeth and like hair all disheveled. But by the middle of the movie, he like takes her to get cleaned up so she could do an interview with Rudy Giuliani. And it turns out she's like super hot actress,
Yeah.
So, and then he tells Rudy Giuliani that she's like, this is my 15 year, she's 15 years old. John wants to do an interview of you. Blah, blah, blah. Goes into a hotel room. They do the interview, whatever. And then he's like, okay, you want to go into the room? And freaking, he goes into the room and he like starts taking his pants off with the girl. And
Rudy or Borat?
Rudy.
Oh, man.
Borat's not even in there. It's just Rudy and the girl.
Oh, shit.
And the girl's like, it takes him in there. And she's like, he thinks they're going to have sex. He's like taking his pants off on the bed.
Yeah.
And Borat, Sasha freaks out, off camp that like, this is the story. So he runs in as Borat and he's like, oh my God, okay, we gotta go. This is like, God, we're going to take it's a wild scene, man. And then they ask Rudy about it. And he's like, oh, I was just adjusting the microphone on my, adjusting the microphone on my pants and shit. This made like national news. Sasha's a genius, man.
That's crazy. See, and that's interesting because one of the things I was thinking watching Borat 1 was like, could that type of movie be filmed today? I think people would be like privy to being filmed. It's like we've had Jackass, we've had Punk, we've had Borat. People are like aware of that. There's cameras fucking everywhere. I think everyone's pretty, aware of being filmed and things like that, But apparently it still can be done, which is pretty funny.
Well, yeah, because you're unsuspecting,
Yeah.
It just, takes something so small and somebody a little less intelligent to fall for it,
Yeah. Hey, well, here's a question for you, because it made me think of like PC culture, right? Where it's like watching the original 2006, it seemed like people were kind of like looser or something. Maybe it was just the shots that they happened to get, but like he's in New York and people are like, I'll break your fucking jaw, man. People are getting pissed, yelling at him. He's talking to these like old Southern racists, saying crazy shit. Like just the amount of just sort of like American misbehavior there is, there's so much of it. And now I think we're so maybe overly conscious with like, cancel culture, PC culture, like, self-censorship, constantly filming each other. Like teenagers like actually drink less today. And the reason is not because they want to drink less, it's because they're filming each other and they're scared they're going to get in trouble. So for better or worse, that's just kind of what's happening. So I wonder if like, do you think that like Americans have cleaned up our behavior since 2006? And if we have, is it sincere and authentic, or is everyone just scared of getting in trouble?
Well, it kind of sucks you haven't seen the second one, because it's that question, because it is kind of wild, because he does there's these two guys he meets at like the freaking insurrection over there in Washington with Trump, you know, and the freaking,
God.
yeah. And and he ends up like living with these guys. He's like, I need a place to live, you know, and they freaking take him out to the woods, and you think it's gonna be all bad. But these guys are like really nice dudes, and they like take him in and they like listen to him about his crazy politics and actually like start changing their minds later. And that apparently there's like, I don't know if this is true or whatever, but or like it's been a while since I've seen if it's in the credits or something, but they ended up like legit becoming friends with freaking Sasha. They were
Really?
Yeah. So it's like these two hick dudes who live together, you know, out in the woods, and they're just really dumb. They didn't really know, you know, just like, I don't know. So possibly that could be an example. There's arguments to be made that it's worse, arguments to be made that things are better, you know. I think that's always the case in every society.
Right.
It's a pros and cons thing. I do think that people had less of a filter back in 2006 because their technology wasn't readily available. Cancel culture wasn't around. YouTube, I think, was barely a thing, starting to be a thing. Like, you know, certainly nobody had camera phones, and the camera phones we did have, they were taking pictures that looked like a freaking, you know, Atari video game, you know, pixelated, much less a beautiful video, you know. So like, I think people were definitely more apt to just be like, spout off some wild shit, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
like
feeling.
That guy at the rodeo where he's like, when he's talking to that dude and that old dude that was talking, he's like, in my country, we just hang them from the rafters, the gay people. And he's like, well, that's what we're trying to do here. A high five.
So crazy.
But just like, wow, man, people think like that here, you know. I think it's still prevalent. Of course it is.
Yeah, sure.
Trump era.
I mean, yeah, there's still like I mean, there is crazy shit that goes on for sure, you know.
Yeah.
But I think generally, I don't know. I think aside from the Trump people, because I think that's part of the like Trump ethos, is that like, you know, they're you know, flying in the face of PC culture. They're like, oh, fuck it, you're going to tell me what to say? Well, I'm going to say the opposite. You know, they're trolls. That's like part of what it is.
Right.
You know, so aside from that group, that particular group, I think people are like very, very, I don't know, cautious about like what they're saying, because we kind of assume that we're being surveilled all the time, which we are, you know?
Sure. Let's do all the big hitters too. Race, gender is incredible.
Yeah, gender's huge in it. Yeah.
You know, man, there's honestly so many scenes to pick from. One scene I want to talk about was so bizarre is that guy who's trying to teach him how to make a mother-in-law joke.
Oh yeah, that was so funny.
My suit is black. Not.
Oh man, dude, the most brilliant line when he fucking puts Pamela Anderson in the sack, and then he's like, you know, has security on top of him and shit, and he's like being handcuffed, and he says like something like, Pamela, I still love you. Not. And it's like, dude, how did this guy not break character? And excuse my Borat impression, it sucks, but like, how did this dude not break character at all?
He's a genius, you know.
Yeah. Like when him and that dude are fucking naked in the conference room,
stuff, you know. Yeah, I'm like, conference room.
And they just didn't stop. They just keep going, and it's like, what the hell?
There's got to be something wrong with the guy too, you know. Just like when we talked about Alex, whatever, the free solo guy.
Oh yeah,
had like no fear. You know, the part of his brain was unstable or like didn't work right.
Yeah.
Probably same with Sasha socially, because doing those things, I'd be so scared to like go control a rodeo full of people, or like
so crazy
go dancing with like a bunch of dudes on the side of the street. Just like, you ever heard this song? I'm like, Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, that shit was so funny with those
Oh,
kids like
man.
outing. Ding 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 ding. And they're just like, no, like
And then also like the whole time he's also trolling Middle Eastern culture, which I think this
yeah.
day and age wouldn't fly either, but
Oh,
like,
people have literally gotten like assassination attempts for that, like Salman Rushdie and shit.
oh
Like
yeah,
he got
absolutely.
stabbed for writing a book about the Middle East, It's like
Right. It is
crazy.
like just I love the opening scene of his village. It's so crazy.
Yeah. Or I guess not Middle East, Eastern European, like
Sure,
Soviet.
sure, sure. My mother, oldest woman in the village. She's 43.
Yeah.
So old.
So good.
And just
Oh, wait, go back to the gender thing. I feel like you were gonna say something about that.
uh well, there's that one there, case in point, when he meets up with the feminist women,
Oh man, so
essentially what he's doing is trolling those like Eastern European, Middle Eastern cultures that exploit females,
Yeah.
um what are your thoughts, because Dion has some controversial thoughts on like women wearing burqas and or what are those things called, right? The face coverings and stuff like that.
Yeah. What are my thoughts on it?
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't want to wear one. I don't know. That's about the extent of my thought on it. It's like if someone wants to wear that, wear it, and I don't want to wear it, so I'm not going to. It's like I don't know. Like if someone wants to, cool, I'm down. If someone doesn't want to, that's cool too. I don't care. In those countries that people are forced to wear stuff, like that's not okay.
Right.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I feel like I don't have much like thought on it. But why? What's Dion's thing?
Dion thinks you got to be out of your mind. Dion's Bill Maher, he think with religions, so it's just like, how could you, and it's also like,
like that.
yeah, and it's also like a far liberal take to just be like, to exploitation of women, etc., trying to cover up the female body and the face and all this stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
He's all into that.
If that woman wants to do it, more power to her,
I suppose. Dion,
I think it's kind of cool though.
I think Dion comes from a place too where he thinks you're literally batshit nuts if you're doing shit like that. Just like going to church, and singing, and eyes rolling in your head at some Christian Baptist church. You're just as crazy to be doing that shit as anything else. Bill Maher. Yeah.
I mean, it's even kind of cool because I remember like seeing that for the first time, probably as a kid, walking around like Penn Station or something in New York City, and seeing people, just their eyes peering out. And it's like spooky and weird, especially like in the early 2000s. There was post 9/11. So there's this like
the National Geographic
going on.
The National Geographic girl with the green eyes.
Oh yeah.
Remember that.
But like it's, I don't know, it makes me feel like I'm in a I'm in Dune or something. It's also kind of cool. It's like
right.
Like if it's kind of like walking around
I would agree.
Where's Tatooine, people in all these wild costumes, and you're like, whoa, what the hell?
Sure. I could see that. Hold on, let me let Hagrid up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start barking a bit.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm also getting at is that there's been some controversial, like liberal democratic sentimentism for these cultures. And I think this was all part of Sasha's Borat's take too on it, is how fucking liberal can we get to protect a culture that genderism, racism, freaking you name it, economy in shambles, freaking cutting people's heads off, polygamy, forced polygamy, having sex with kids. It's just like Pamela Anderson was perfect. She had the asshole of a 7-year-old.
Oh my God, yeah.
He's blatantly freaking, just like, come on, people, like,
Yeah.
wake the fuck up, right? I mean, that's how I read it. I'm not saying that me or you share these thoughts, but that's how his political commentary came off to me.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, here's one argument. So, one, I'm an American man. I'm into freedom. I'm into independence. So that includes
Sasha, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I think Sacha Baron Cohen, Borat, whatever. I think that
he's the most American man.
He's the most American man. He's British, but he's the most American man. I mean, everything.
He's the most democratic man.
I feel like there is this like sense of like deep freedom that he's actually kind of arguing for. I think
so. Yes.
Underneath the the pure hilarity and disgusting jokes and everything else, I think there's a sense of freedom, right? Where I mean, one, to be able to just sort of like transgress all these different lines and boundaries in society, racial, gender, class, all these things. He's just moving between boundaries like water or something, right? I mean, there's a deep sense of freedom there to be able to like go into a rodeo and sing this ridiculous song. I mean, there's a sense of freedom that the satirist represents, right? So I think that's what he's doing. And
the satirist right there, exactly. Yeah.
And then also taking the when he's trolling the feminists and everything, even that is like it's pushing them, it's pushing their edges. It's like yeah, how much can you take before you break, kind of. I think there's something to that. And it's even, I don't know, yeah, there's something to that. I'm not sure if I'm fully getting at it, but yeah, there's some kind of freedom to the satirist. And I think it is this like distinctly American kind of freedom and pointing out people's hypocrisies, right?
Okay, so this is just a quick Google search here.
What do you got?
The term satire was coined by the classical rhetorician Quintilian, who used the root of the Latin word satira, which means fool, and was familiar to many Romans from the phrase lang satira, which described a medley of fruits, and apparently conveyed the miscellaneous quality of early satire. Weird.
Interesting.
Satire is the art of making someone or something look ridiculous, raising laughter in order to embarrass, humble, and discredit its targets.
Yeah.
Essentially, you couldn't have said it better. That's exactly where I was going for too, because I think if it was in a world where this satire was Tatooine, everybody was cool, it's Dune, this is, we love this shit, it's hot, Lawrence of Arabia, that would be one thing. But you have these scenes, even still, they freaking killed some girl in the street for not wearing hers the other day,
Right. Yeah.
And that's that to a person like Sacha Baron Cohen, Dion Baron Cohen, that blows their mind.
Dion Baron Cohen.
It blows their mind because these men are freedomists. They're who is the French Revolution guy we always talk about?
Robespierre.
What was it?
Robespierre.
Robespierre? Is that the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he's the one who got his head chopped off during the revolution.
Yeah.
He was one of the figures who like started the revolution, but then like became a victim of it.
He's the one who got his head chopped off. Right.
Yeah, is that who you're thinking of?
Yeah, man. For some reason, his first name I thought it was different. I really did.
Well, his first name isn't Robes, and I'm sure I'm saying it wrong because it's French, but it's like, right? Isn't his last name like
Yes.
Robespierre, you know?
Robespierre. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, we're talking about the same person, you know.
We are, yeah.
That dude was a Sacha Baron Cohen. Mark Twain was, you know. There were these certain figures out there. Dion Twain, you know. Um, that they just can't take like religious oppression and what it means to the mental
Yeah.
conservatorium that takes away freedoms, you know.
Yeah. Well, look, man,
Ideology.
I'm an anarchist in the sense that I believe most deeply in personal freedom, right? People can do whatever they want as long as it doesn't harm, you know, someone else. And then it starts to get, you know, more complex after that. But okay, take like female circumcision and like, you know, a few, you know, African tribal spaces, things like that. You know, like Alice Walker writes about this stuff. It's terrifying what goes on with like female circumcision. It is literally the most terrifying shit you can imagine based on what I've read. And that's one of those issues. I mean, you know, this comes up in like undergrad philosophy classes and shit where it's like, okay, do we respect that culture and just say like, well, it's a cultural preference, it's not ours, but okay, you know, even though it's like harming, you know, 12-year-old 13-year-old girls and shit like that, right? I mean, deeply harming them, maiming them for life, right? Or do we take the other end of the spectrum, which is like we're the American saviors, we need to go in and, you know, turn everyone into Americans and democratize everything like we thought we were going to do in Iraq and shit like that, and Vietnam. It's ridiculous. No, we're not going to do that either. But I think it comes down to like personal preference. And I know that, you know, in these societies, personal preference isn't very much available for a 13-year-old girl, you know. But if there's an individual who wants to do that, who wants to wear burqa, whatever, who is taking, you know, the personal initiative to do these things, yeah, sure, I'm not going to question it. Absolutely, do your thing, you know. But if the society is like, you know, forcing them to do it and oppressing them to do it, I mean, that's something different. Then there's no personal freedom in that, you know.
Well, then often
I'm not going to be the one who's going to roll up in freaking this tribe in Africa and be like, hey guys, I don't think you should be doing that. You know, it's like, I don't know these fucking people. I don't want to get my head chopped off, you know, like,
sure,
like,
we don't want to.
Am I responsible for that? You know?
Right. Don't want to engage in like a white savior complex.
Right. Yeah.
Or like you're saying, world policing America.
Yeah.
You know, however, we don't have to be like, oh, I fully accept what they do on a moral, personal level. Foucault, you know, we can also believe it to their behaviors, certain behaviors to be abhorrent, you know.
Right, exactly.
And we also,
but who cares? What's my belief got to do with anything? Like, no one in one of those societies gives a shit if Jared McHugh over in Denver, Colorado, thinks good or bad about what they're doing, you know. Like, who cares? Belief it's vapor. It doesn't even exist, you know.
What it does though is it creates, you know, artistic expression. Look at Borat. All of Sacha Baron Cohen's work is based off of, you know, the expression of his ideologies and his, you know, feelings against certain political, sociological, racial, gendered standards that other people seem to accept for some weird reason, you know, which he doesn't. It doesn't seem good to him. But I do get what you're saying too in terms of normality. What's normal and what's abnormal is a matter of opinion in terms of cultures. And we should start looking inward, because our obsession with circumcising our young boys is a freaking epidemic. It's terrible. They don't realize that it takes away almost 75% of the filling of a penis. And drug companies are now getting rich off of impotent young American men who can't, you know, get erections or finish because their freaking wankies were chopped off when they were younger, man.
Right.
because they thought it was like unclean. We're a Christian nation. What the hell does that even mean? You know?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no, stop. And that's the same thing that's happening. You know, female circumcisions. It's a religious based. They
right.
think it's clean or something like that, and boom, they do it. And it's just we justify these wild things on people that don't have a choice in the matter. And that's another thing with religion is, you know, oftentimes it's kids are like, oh, I'm choosing to wear this, you know, but they don't really know because they're in this weird, crazy thing, you know.
Right. See, and that's the thing. It's like, I mean, and that's the value of well, philosophy in the sense that we were talking about it last week. Philosophy as like lived action, constantly questioning, constantly, you know, tearing apart your own belief system, not just the ones outside of you, you know, because if you think, you know, I don't know, I'm supposed to be wearing a burqa or I'm totally going to circumcise my child or whatever the issue is. I think it's always important to go a step deeper than that and say, well, why do I think that? Do I think that because I was conditioned to think it? Do I think it because I was indoctrinated and acculturated? Or do I sincerely, genuinely in my heart believe that? You know?
Right.
Because if there's sincerity and authenticity, like, okay, fine, you know?
Sure. Sure. Again, if it's tattooing style and you're all for it, you're an adult, you want to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then go for it, you know, in certain cultures. I mean, I don't want to be Vlad the Impaler here, freaking telling
Right.
Turk to take off his burqa, you know.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that, you know, that's where the left could go too far. Like, you know,
Yeah,
make
definitely.
Sasha Baron Cohen the president and he might be nailing burqas to people's heads who don't want to take them off, you know. So tell me this. Are comedians the smartest humans on the planet at all times throughout all generations?
That's a ridiculous question. Um, no, well, I don't know. I think that's a very loaded question. That's like assuming, you know.
I think there's an argument to say that they are. I really do. Maybe not like philosophically speaking. Philosophically speaking.
Yeah, I don't know. So, okay, I saw this funny meme that was like, okay, comedians on podcasts are always like, oh yeah, comedians are really like the last philosophers of humanity. I mean, we're really the ones holding down like true thought, you know? And then the next scene is like comedians on stage and they're making like poop jokes,
Oh, right, right,
you
right.
know? And it's like, so I don't know, you know, are some comedians like really, really, really smart and really clear, you know, on what's going on in our society and all that? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some comedians are so fucking smart. Um, and just their storytelling abilities and all of that. I mean, are like Dave Chappelle, like that dude's a genius. Like he's a really, really, really smart guy. Um,
Chappelle,
Louis C.K., I know he got me too, but still brilliant
right.
dude, you know.
So many brilliants out there. There was somebody I was thinking of. Chris Rock's really good too. There's somebody I was just thinking of though. That's like, oh, well, Sasha, you know.
All right, wait, here's a question about Borat. Do you think that Sasha is taking aim at human beings, at individuals and people? Because he does make a lot of people really uncomfortable. Is he taking aim at people or is he taking aim at ideology and belief systems that the people hold?
I mean, I would say both. I think that you have to have an you know, a real in deep, so deeper like distaste for people, which only gets acquired through, you know, disgust of their ideologies and behaviors. So
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think he tries to target both. Like I think it bothers him so much that he actually tries to target both, you know. And what's interesting about him is he's a Clarence Darrow.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
he's there like representing like a fake version of terrorists or whatever, you know, that
Yeah.
was the vision of like what a
Right.
terrorist was in 2006.
Yeah.
Like it was some dude with curly hair that wore a gray suit and was like afraid of Jews, you know. And then but then he makes fun of the left side. He exploits and satirizes the right at the rodeo, at the freaking, whatever it may be, rich people, etc. So
right, literally everyone.
He's Clarence Darrow.
Yeah, he's Clarence Darrow.
I would also say that's true too. A lot of comedians are idiots and a lot of scholars are idiots. But, I think there's philosophers and scholars, writers, painters, comedians, actors, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That, are better than others, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
hey, here's some like one of the scenes I want to talk about because I found it peculiar. So when he goes up to those, he's just like driving through the hood or whatever in his freaking ice cream truck, and then and then he approaches those like a group of black kids who are just like hanging out, whatever, and then Borat goes up to them and does this whole Borat thing.
Right.
Part of that scene, like the shock of that scene again, is like transgression of boundaries and stuff, right? Where it's like, I know he's supposed to be Eastern European or whatever, but he's a white dude and he's like going into this like black space, and it's supposed to be like, oh man, I hope he's gonna be okay talking to those like black gangster kids or whatever, and but that's the tamest scene in the whole movie, because it's like he goes up to like,
and that's
kids.
What's intentional about it.
Exactly. He goes up to these kids that the society dubs as dangerous and whatever else.
Right.
And then they seem pretty fine and pretty okay compared to like the old dude at the rodeo who's like, let's hang the fucking gays.
Right. Well,
right. Like, who would you rather spend your time with,
Because I think the pinpoint target there is the ridiculousness of the color line.
Right.
And how we fear that, and going into supposedly black neighborhood or Chicano neighborhood, brown neighborhood, like in Santa Fe, it's Airport Road, right, where they say all the Chicanos live, and this and that. I love going to Airport Road, best tacos in town, for you.
Right.
It's just like the best freaking grocery stores and shit, and that's the truth of it. And that's what Borat was trying to show too, so.
Right.
And really the scariest people were the ones that were like super rich, were trying to do like manners or whatever. That just like, this really weird, bizarre behavior, and really like hateful behavior too, like you're saying, dude at the rodeo, whatever. Another point on gender too, which is funny, is that it's also correlates with like jackass culture. I know you mentioned that in text message too.
Yeah.
But this like hyper like homoeroticism, that was happening in the 2000s within like bro culture.
Yeah, definitely.
And to criticize Borat, of course, it's not like a freaking legendary masterpiece. Like there is some criticisms there to be had, and I think he does engage in some of that like bro culture with the his director or whatever. But then that's also calling to attention that how like conservative the 90s were with like homoeroticism and like, because like even in Jackass and stuff, like Steve-O and Party Boy, they're like wearing thongs half the time, like taping stuff to their dicks, like monsters, and like, and he's there with like his director, like, squat or jumping on his face on the bed, wrestling, and like, I don't know if you've ever seen Bruno. Have you seen Bruno? The one where he's like an Austrian, like gay.
Yeah. And if I did, it was like years ago.
Right. That one's wild too. It was just like the time for that. I don't know if that's too much a thing anymore,
No, yeah, like I feel like part of 90s 2000s humor was like, I mean, like gay was always like a a punchline, right? You know,
Right,
like
right,
just like gay was the punchline and like farts were the punchline, you know. It's
right.
like that was
And like mental disabilities.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
like the
exactly. Yeah,
90s
yeah.
favorite. Like half of Adam Sandler's wealth came from playing like people with Asperger's. You know?
Dude, seriously, yeah, the guy made a whole fucking career on like pretending to be mentally ill.
Yeah. Oh, hey.
Billy Madison and shit.
Right. The water boy
Oh,
just like mama said, the mama said.
yeah, yeah. Oh man, that's funny. So like,
I wanted to write an article. Me and Dion wanted to collaborate on just like, making fun of the disabled in the 90s, how that was like one of the
we're
key
obsessed
forms of
with it.
comedic forms of the 90s. Like, why?
And that's part of the Trump thing too. For some reason, the Borat movie sparked a lot of thought about Trump. I don't know why, but like, because I think like among Trump people, there seems to be this like nostalgia, right? I mean, make America great again, and you're trying to like go back to something, and that includes humor. I feel like they all want to like regress back into a form of humor that's comfortable, you know, where it's like making fun of retarded people or whatever, you know, is like
Right, right. Dropping
kosher and
off.
that's hilarious. And what it really is just like nostalgia for like, you know, your childhood in the 90s when like Adam Sandler could was funny, you know.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Dropping R bombs at the Republican convention.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And it's just like, oh man, love that dude.
Hilarious. Nobody jokes like that anymore. Make comedy great again, man.
Yeah, right.
Start making like, yeah. I mean, not to say I don't love Happy Gilmore and all those movies. I grew
Oh,
up
they are
on
funny,
that
yeah,
too.
sure.
It's
Yeah.
it's also a means of like having a sense of humor, and it's not really just about that.
Sure, sure, sure.
It's also just slapstick comedy, and that's also what slapstick comedy has been
Yeah,
since
it's just
the
people being dumb,
Arthurian
right?
times. Is just
Yeah.
people being dumb, making fun of dumb people, and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know I think that's a long running tradition is like making fun of each other for like health reasons, falling down or like
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
whatever. Like, they're even in
I
like
mean, Charlie Chaplin, right? Just like
Charlie
physical
Chaplin.
comedy, you
I'm
know?
even thinking like medieval Bible times, whatever it is, making
Yeah,
fun of bald people, whatever. It's just
right.
a weird human inclination to make fun of like human, inabilities or
Yeah,
strength. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's the weird thing about humor too, because there's one way in which humor can be satire, where you're actually, um, you know, calling out hypocrites and you know, it's the freedom of the satirist and all that sort of stuff. But then there's another way in which humor can be used as a control mechanism, you know, as a oppressive mechanism, right? I mean, laughter is part of how we control one another and say this is what the society deems acceptable, and if you step out of those boundaries, we're going to make fun of you
Right.
and
Right.
laugh at you and ridicule you and get you back into line,
Yeah.
you know. So there's also something, you know, humor also has a oppressive potential.
So what was the like what's the like generational after 9/11 like comedy progression to what we have now? Like what's even like when was the last time you're like, man, the like most hilarious movie came out? I mean, they stream. I've seen some like new good
Mm,
streamers shows more,
yeah,
but like movies like Dumb and Dumber and stuff like that.
yeah. I
Even
feel like
like
I haven't.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck in the 80s, 70s, there's comedy.
Right, right.
I just don't feel like, or even in like the 2000, like in the aughts or 2010s,
Yeah,
you would get like the Seth Rogans and like,
yeah, yeah. All those like Seth Rogen
is
stoner
comedy
house.
dead?
Maybe, all right, maybe the comedy film is dead because I think stand-up
The
comedy
comedy
is
film.
thriving.
Also,
Right.
like I said, like shows are like, there's a lot of like dark shows, like,
Yeah,
fake faux superhero shows and stuff that are like
right.
hilarious,
Yeah.
But they're also like really dark. Some of them are, and some of them, I don't know. I think in TV, even like a really famous dude, I can't think of the Righteous Gemstones, and I don't know, a Danny McBride.
Yeah.
He's thriving on HBO, making shows, but the movies that he makes now are horror. He's
Really?
actually, yeah, he did the Halloween series, and he's doing the new Exorcist.
Yeah.
Whereas in like 2015s, 2010s, whatever, he's making movies with Seth Rogen, Pineapple Express,
Right.
it's the end. And it's crazy that this is the end, which came out, I think, like 15 or something. That was pretty much the end of like the comedy movie as we knew it.
You know what's that movie? Don't Look Up comes to mind. Where I
Yeah.
think that one, you know that one?
Yeah, with Leo.
Yeah, Leo. I think it was that one's kind of a dark comedy, but it was almost like like that one was satirical, where it was all this commentary on like, climate change, whatever. And it was like, I think that was the last movie I saw that was like supposed to be funny, but it was also like too real to be fully funny. Like I feel like, yeah, there hasn't been like a lighthearted, like SNL style, like Will Ferrell doing something dumb and
Right.
funny. Like that style of movies, stoner comedy, Harold and Kumar.
Right.
Maybe I'm just unaware of them, which is possible, but like, yeah, I feel like that style of comedy is just kind of faded out.
So check this one out if you get bored. It's do you know the Beer Fest guys? Broken Lizard, Super
Yeah.
Troopers, Beer Fest,
Yes. Yeah.
They made a movie called Quasi recently, and it only came out on Hulu, and it's a feature film, but it gives you that like 2015's nostalgia of just like, oh man, this is just like a straight up comedy, like Broken Lizard movie, for
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Huh. Hey, here's something in Borat I want to talk about that it's an American road trip movie.
Oh, right. Yeah. I was
Right?
thinking that too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he takes the like Jack Kerouac on the road narrative and turns it into this like hyper absurdist, 21st century slapstick bizarre thing where instead of like, I don't know, hitchhiking and he's like, I don't know, smoking cigarettes and drinking beer with people, and it's all very romanticized and they're listening to jazz and stuff like that, like very Kerouac. Instead, he's driving a freaking ice cream truck with like a bear in the back.
Right.
And then when he is hitchhiking, he gets picked up by these like frat boy fucks, and it's like he takes that narrative, the American road, which goes even way before Kerouac. Kerouac was tapping into like 30s hobo culture, train jumping and stuff like that. That's coming from Lewis and Clark, Manifest Destiny. So it's like taking like the westward narrative of America and completely shitting on
travelogues,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The one I was thinking too, when I was thinking about them hitting the road, was it's also a really good use of straight up a very classical story structure of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Where you have a call to action, it's essentially Willow and Lord of the Rings and everything, it's just hilarious because his call to action is watching Baywatch,
Right.
So
right.
it's not true. And so I saw CJ, the most beautiful woman loves in the world. And boom, it's a classic narrative, though. It's a call to action. He has his companion with him, his companions, his bear, his chicken, and his director. They're in the ice cream truck. They hit the road. They got to get to LA, and they're going to find a bunch of they're going to meet trolls on the way, and, the cave monster, and you shall not pass.
Right.
Eventually, they'll get to Mordor.
Bro, it's very it's like Ulysses, man, James Joyce. I mean, like, it's actually kind of similar in the sense that
the deepest movie ever made.
I think so. I think Borat's the deepest movie ever made.
Sure.
Because in James Joyce, like Ulysses, like all it is it's a day in the life of like a Dubliner, Leopold Bloom, and he's like it's him going through the hero's journey superimposed onto just like mundane reality of day-to-day life within the very specific context of Ireland in the early 1900s. So Borat's doing that for America in 2006.
Yes. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
that's really weird.
I mean, we figured it out. So.
Yeah, that's
Um,
Baron Cohen, man. Just the next James Joyce.
yeah, seriously. But that's what Duchamp said, is that the next great American, or the contemporary, I can't remember how he puts it, but the most important art form in the contemporary period will be film. And he essentially relates, famous artists in the past, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, whatever, to directors, actors, producers, writers in the future. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I saw something that Scorsese, I think it was inspired by Caravaggio, who is a Renaissance painter, and Scorsese would look at this guy's paintings and like just setting up shots and all that sort of thing. I mean, he was getting inspired by Renaissance paintings that just had like very powerful compositions and things like that.
Well, we also see the beauty of cinematography, these days, and just these, oh man, even Dune, right?
Yeah,
we watch a movie like Dune because, and this is what I love most about the visual art form of cinema, is that it's a freaking visceral experience. You hear it, you see it, like you experience emotions with it. It's crazy. Even in an RPX, you'll feel it. Theater, your chair shaking or whatever the heck, but even in those IMAX theaters, you're feeling it. It's loud, it's visceral, you're seeing it, you're hearing it, the music, it's very musical. It's you know what it is? It's a triptych of an emotional experience. It's a holy trinity of it's a triptych art form is what it is.
Yeah. You talk about indoctrination, like even though you and I have both like, left our respective churches and conditioning and shit like that, like we can't help it, man. We're still like see things as Trinity and
well, then we're completely indoctrinated into the philosophical like realms we like fell in love with. Like the triptych is Guattari, and when he talks about Francis Bacon's paintings,
okay, nice.
Triptychs,
See, I wonder like if we can disabuse ourselves of every bit of conditioning ever, like all of it. Go back to center, let go of the philosophical stuff from school. Huh?
Would we want to?
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Seems like wasted time for me, wasted effort,
Right.
Like we were saying even earlier in the conversation, learning experiences, right? It's not a regretful situation. It's a situation in which we grow and we learn, and just like most times in our lives.
I guess I'm thinking now, like, what does pure perception look like? Pure consciousness that is not filtered through the lens of any religious conditioning, any philosophical conditioning, any political, historical conditioning, just removing your consciousness fully from the context in which you currently are. Is there such a thing as just pure consciousness? And what would that be? Does consciousness necessarily rely on these filters, on these objects? If you get rid of those filters and objects, is consciousness null? Does it go away? Is it just gone? Is there something like pure consciousness that you're just hanging out in then? Do we stop existing? What is it?
I think that it is something very bad, whatever it is. And it's something that we do not want to experience.
Say more. Why?
That's because my evidence for that argument would be We literally most societies classify the abuse of a child, if you were to isolate them, say in a basement,
Yeah.
and only feed them, and that's it. They
Like
have,
you do with
they
dolphins.
have to, like, yeah, right. She's locked in there all day. Haggard takes out her food. But, um, but really, though, that's what that would be, because you have no parental influence, you have no TV influence, you have no friends, social, you don't see anything, you don't have the influence of nature. You're literally just conscious.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing you're conscious of is the taste of your various foods. But if you got pudding every single day or oatmeal, even that would be one dimensional. That is literally the definition of abuse, because you take away humanity, and what you're left with is basically, I wouldn't want to say animal, but something that is no longer conscious, no longer able to interact with the world. To us, that is a travesty. It's devastating, because then no one would ever have individuality, self-thought, growth. You're just fucking there until you die in a blank white space. That was the scariest part about Interstellar. Is that's what's so scary about the fourth dimension, is being locked in a place where you're no longer able to be nurtured or natured by anything.
Yeah.
Other than thought.
Yeah. Seeing in that, you're still filtering it through yourself. I guess it's hard to say. I guess maybe I'm thinking of like a animism or panpsychism kind of thing. Like the idea that consciousness is like we're just the antenna, like there's something, we're just channeling awareness and consciousness through us, right? So then if you remove the individual, that the consciousness is still there. It's not that, you lose a light of consciousness, we're just filtering it,
Say more about that.
All right, I'm just spitballing here. This is new to me. So, all right, so okay, so the idea that there's consciousness is what's the phrase? A priori, when it's like pre-existing everything.
Okay.
All right, so consciousness is pre-existing, right? It's just this sort of amorphous, maybe kind of glowing, just present thing, and then God. And then we're the ones that are channeling it. We're filtering it through, right? we're the limbs, the fingers of that consciousness. So I'm wondering, if you remove all of my conditioning, all of that, like, can I merge back into pure consciousness?
I don't think so. I think once paint is I think once wipe of even one bucket of, take the Invisible Man, right? Ralph Ellison.
Oh, great. Yeah.
There's that crucial and like moving scene at the paint shop. He works at like Sherwin-Williams or something, and like the racist dude tells him like,
yeah,
these have to be mixed perfectly, because even one drop
right
of black in a can of paint, no matter white paint, no matter how big the can is, it will change the pigment forever.
Yeah.
Right. So even one drop of thought into a conscious brain will forever change its present state, and I don't think you could go back there. I think you could convince yourself that you've fallen so much into an ideology that you've achieved oneness, but I think that's just you have achieved a complete encapsulation, manifested and fabricated.
That's that's the most delusion. That's
the
pure delusion.
Exactly.
That's pure delusion mistaken as pure consciousness.
And think about it.
Whoa.
And even think about it just from an average American or persona perspective, right? Of like, somebody who said they've reached enlightenment,
Sure.
whether that person, whatever the case is, in the thought of an average, like Bill Maher, Dion, Sacha Baron Cohen, uh, that person's the most encapsulated, indoctrinated, constructed, fell for it sucker of them all,
Mm. Man, I like this conversation. It's like it's making me think. So what's death? So could death then be that kind of like, I guess, enlightenment where I mean, what is death if not the very, very real release of conditioning, ideology, self, everything that you thought you were is just you're taking off the clothing, it's gone, right?
Right.
Could death be just merging back into unity, merging back into pure consciousness?
Oh, sure. And maybe that's what pure consciousness is the feeling that, when we sleep and not necessarily dream, right? We're in a state of pure consciousness where you're not conscious of yourself, right? You are
Right.
your sleep, you're breathing your body, but you're not. And that was always like one really, like, I thought, comforting thing about like the fear mongering of the JWs was you either get into paradise or you go to sleep forever, and eternal rest. It's like there's a scripture that says like eternal peaceful rest. Listen, man, I went to sleep last night. If nobody woke me up, including my body, I would have never have known, so comfortable.
Right.
It's like the fan on, freaking unconscious thought, baby.
Yeah.
It's consciousness when you're aware of yourself. Boom, then you would immediately get fear, right? And
Yeah.
that's how we know that it's not necessarily possible either. Baby's born, doesn't know anybody, hasn't been nurtured or anything for anything.
Yeah.
What's the first thing baby does? Fucking cry, fear, because you're aware of yourself.
Mm.
And that's why it would be an abuse to take away all these things from someone.
Right.
Wild.
And that's interesting because you said fear. So the first thing baby does is cry because there's fear, and there's fear because there's awareness of self. There is an individual there. There's me, and then there's the world, and I'm scared right now, right?
Exactly. And
So
you need somebody to take care of you, the parent.
right. So then if you so is it that individuated self from which fear arises? If you can slough off your individuated self, would fear dissipate? Because then there's no one to fear for.
Well, I don't think we would be human anymore.
Yeah. What would you
I think what separates humans from other species is the immediate self-awareness.
Yeah.
Without being self-aware, what the fuck are you? You're just, it's not possible. Or you would have a severe mental problems.
Right.
You'd be disassociating from yourself, which is also called schizophrenia. So
Right.
but even in times of that, you're still identifying, right? And according to religion, the only way to unidentify from the self is by embracing their ideology. And
Right.
so there's no way to do it, because either way, you're embracing some sort of categorization of identity, right?
Which brings us back to Sacha Baron Cohen and why he knows everything.
Right.
Because he's the Clarence Darrow. There is no attachment to ideologies, religions, thought forms, whatever. I mean, that's what I like in some religious traditions where you do get these figures that kind of like make it to the top of that institution and then just abandon the institution.
Right.
And there's a few of them, who are just like, oh, there's actually nothing here. And then keep
Sure.
moving.
But it also fits, Sasha fits our later hypotheses too, though, that he's quite possibly on the other spectrum, the most indoctrinated person in all of those films. I mean, the guy's out there because of his own ideology and morality, trying to satirize and make fools of people that he disagrees with.
Yeah. See, what's that too? I mean, talk about how, our psychology, our childhood conditioning, all of that creates, who we become as adults. What's his stuff? It's like, why did he become Borat? Why does he play the fool so much? Did something happen to him where he's just desperate for attention constantly? I wonder if in a lot of performers, if that's like a thing, that they're just totally desperate for attention, or if it's just like, again, sincere, authentic, this is just his way of being and can't do anything else. He's a true artist,
Well, I think artists, musician, writers, philosophers, scholars, it all goes hand in hand. It's both. It's a part of it is a call to narcissism, going back to becoming human, the reflection of the self and trying to make thyself, expressed and known. What did Carver say? What's the most repeated line, of Carver's work? Did you get what you wanted out of this life? Tess tells him. He says, I did. And she says, what did you want? And he says, I wanted to love and to be loved, to be beloved and to love, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a call to the artist too, is to not only to express oneself, the comedian, but also to be loved for thy expression.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, but you want to be loved for the expression because what you're expressing is something that you care deeply about,
Right.
The best artists can do that, actually do that,
Mm.
And whether that's a visual representation, a literal one, photography,
Sure.
or an abstract,
Yeah, whatever it is.
A landscape, whatever it is, it's still an expression of how that person feels about, expression of identity in some way. So
Yeah, that makes me think. I've been reading the Bhagavad Gita in honor of Oppenheimer, and one thing I've gotten from it that I really like is they say don't take action with. I'm trying to think how to say this. He goes, don't worry about results. Whatever you're doing, he goes, act without expectation of results. And I think that's maybe, similar to what you're saying now in terms of like the artist, writer, whoever, just creating, just flow state, just letting it out without getting overly concerned about, what recognition am I going to get for this? Am I improving my craft? Am I getting good at this? Am I better than that person over there? Is someone going to pay me for this? But to just sort of like let go of all expectation for results, but do it anyway. So you're just in a flow state creating.
On behalf of the Jareds, thank you for listening. Rate, like, and subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. We will be back next week, and always remember, science is naive. It is always focused on finding the truth, but it never considers how few actually want to find it. Until next time, high five.